Before the COVID crisis, it was clear that the labor market was broken for the 60% of our workforce who do not have 4 year college degrees, whom Opportunity at Work has coined STARS, those that are skilled through alternative routes. In a COVID recovery, amidst a protracted recession, inertia is likely to harden the labor market practices that have historically shut out STARS from career opportunity. And while many stars are stepping up as essential workers, in order for us to rebuild our economy in a more sustainable and equitable way, this is the moment for companies to step up and rethink their traditional hiring practices that led us to the workforce inequities that we see today. So, Byron, since its inception, Opportunity at Work has been focused on workers without 4 year degrees, these stars. Why is it so important for companies to build stars into their workforce planning?
Well, Carrie, I'm glad you started from the perspective of there's a choice, because we're at a moment where there's really a fork in the road as to how we're going to deal with this crisis and what the implications are going to be. And I think it's very important to start out with the view that people talk sometimes in the passive voice about how technology will take jobs or whatever, but we have choices. Technology is not gravity, right? The way we choose to deploy it, what we choose to prioritize, really are choices. So, for example, it was actually pretty recently that, and was accelerated after the 2008 Great Recession, that companies started to add, say, bachelor's degrees requirements to all sorts of jobs where they hadn't been before, to the point where there used to be lots and lots of kind of middle wage, good jobs that could support a family that did not require a bachelor's degree. And while the jobs have changed somewhat, it's actually more true that company policies have changed. So you go to the point where 3/4 of jobs for administrative assistants that are posted now, quote unquote, require a bachelor's degree, whereas 2/3 of administrative assistants actually doing those jobs don't have a bachelor's degree. So, and actually, Joe Fuller and his team at Harvard Business School looked at it, and over a 10-year period, you literally had, for every job that did not require a bachelor's degree, or that did not have the person doing the job did not have a bachelor's degree, when that turned over to another person, over 1/4 of those jobs were just suddenly upshifted to requiring a bachelor's degree. So the thing I wanted to say is that the reason it matters is, for companies, the reason it matters is there's this enormous talent pool, 70 million Americans who do not have 4-year degrees, but who are skilled through alternative routes. That's what STARS stands for, skilled through alternative routes. That could be community college, that could be through military service. A lot of it is on the job. We talk to so many stars around the country, and what you'll hear is, I know what I can do, but no one will give me a chance. Or you'll hear that the way they made it is by just doing the work that no one thought they could do on the job, and they can rise within a company. But here's why this moment is so dangerous, because a lot of people are thrown out of work for no fault of their own, and they're not in their companies where people know what they can do. So now it's a question of how do they get back out there? So we think it's absolutely essential that you can hire based on skills. If someone can get a job based on their skills, they can learn new skills. But if you can only get a job based on your history, what you've done in the past, well, then we're all going to be stuck, and we'll all regret it.
And not only skills, but aptitude and ability, right? I mean, skills can be taught.
Absolutely. And you can't, and honestly, you can't see it. We've gotten to this point where way too many people in positions of power assume that you can know from someone's job, or their background, what they're capable of. And that's just not true. So we assume that if someone's in a low wage job, first of all, we assume that job is low skill. And I have to say, so many low wage jobs are not remotely low skilled. I mean, I think about some of the work that care workers, who are typically very low paid, do. It's actually very sophisticated work in a lot of ways. There are a tremendous number of service jobs that, for various reasons, are low paid, but absolutely are not low skilled. And the people doing those jobs could have all sorts of other skills that you don't know about. And when I say skills, I do mean potential and aptitude. My own father dropped out of college after a year. He didn't have a STEM background. He was working as a shipping clerk in a factory when he answered an ad to get trained in COBOL. which at the time was an IBM programming language. He had never worked in an office, far less worked with technology. No one would have said on the face of it, he's like a great candidate, but he managed it, but he took that chance. He got a job shadow. He got an entry-level job. He became a computer programmer. And that was our family's path into the middle class. And what's so crazy, that was 1970. And there was, I presume there was quite a bit more discrimination against my father for being a black man, but there was actually a lot less discrimination against him for not having a bachelor's degree. And so how many people are whose talents were missing? And I think there's a tremendous cost, obviously, to the economy, but more importantly, there's a moral cost because like meaningful work, remunerative work is a really important part of a thriving life. And we're shutting a lot of people out to their detriment and to ours.
Yeah, I think, I'm equally as passionate about jobs as you are, and I agree. Can you talk to me and the audience a little bit? What are the biggest pain points now for these stars along their learning to earning journey?
Well, I think it has to be acknowledged, first of all, that there are a lot of pain points that are outside of the learning to earning system. And we've heard about some of them today. We're not talking enough about them. I mean, if housing is such that, it takes you 3 hours commute round trip or maybe more to be able to get to an actual job, it's very hard to get started. If you don't feel safe, and you're sort of you're stressed out with the risk of violence all the time, it's very hard. If the care, we talk about, there's a major project that needs to happen with the whole care economy and care workers, both to sort of recognize them and reward their work and to make it possible for kind of middle class families to sort of afford that. So I think that all of that is true. But then even at the heart of this learning to earning journey, we've got a situation, and I don't think anyone's really designed it exactly, but where for a middle class job, overwhelmingly now, there are exceptions, a number of them in the trades, in AFL-CIO and so forth. But for middle class jobs, you need to have a bachelor's degree. As everybody knows, a bachelor's degree is expensive. It takes time. It may be a signal of some good things, but it's a signal of wealth as well. It's a signal of privilege. It's a signal of having a support system that a lot of people don't have. And therefore, you put people behind the curve. And I can't overstate this. The way the workflow works on hiring, people are screened out before their skills are assessed because they don't have this degree. There's other variables too. But I just think about it. Companies say they have a skills gap, but they screen people out before their skills are assessed. We have data that can do amazing things like in real time, and we're not using it for such a fundamental thing as what are the pathways that people can work to advance themselves. The problem is not with the stars. Stars are getting up every day and like working and trying to figure out how to crack the code on a system that's very poorly designed. So it really is time that institutions show up for stars. That's education, above all employers, and yes, public policy as well.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't know about you, but I'm heartened to see a number of employers, Workday included, who have done a really thorough assessment of all of their job postings to make sure that we are not overinflating the degree requirements for certain jobs. So hopefully that trend continues and people actually do take a hard look at what they are putting in their job descriptions, and we can avoid that filtering out before we get a chance to even meet really qualified candidates. I hope it's a trend that continues.
Well, I think, I think, sorry, but I just want to point out, that is a really important part of solving the problem. There are other important parts of solving the problem, and a lot of times, I think this last panel, some of the best training programs in the country are by organized labor, right? But they're in certain parts of the economy. There's so many different solutions in the nonprofit sector that employers are doing, unions, many different ways. And I think we sometimes forget, we argue a lot over, is it this or that that's going to solve the problem? And the answer is it's all of those things and a few more besides, because we can't actually solve the problem in just one silo. But I think we can solve it together, and we can't, it's not going to solve itself, but we could solve it on purpose.
Well, in the limited time that we have, let's tie this into what is going on currently. So given the current unemployment rates, we are sure to see really qualified and experienced candidates competing for open roles against these stars. So why is it important for employers to continue to press forward with their work in hiring stars or providing on-ramps to stars now, when they are going to be competing against these more highly qualified on paper candidates?
Well, I think, Carrie, that depends on what we think qualified means. If I mean, it's a bit of an arbitrary thing to say qualified means that you spent 4 years, right, like in a seat, like writing things.
Or previous work experience doing that exact job.
Well, right, like work experience, I think, is very relevant, but of course that is circular, right? Because how do you get the experience in the first?
Totally.
I would say,
Agreed.
the last conversation spent a lot of time on essential workers, as we're now saying, and I think that is really important. It highlighted a lot, like the completely disproportionate undue burden. But I hope people are also paying attention not just to the burden and not just to the courage, but to the adaptability, the resourcefulness, the skill that you're seeing. And I mean, there's just tremendous reconfiguration of work happening that essential workers are doing. This is not like some like scientists in a lab figuring it all out and then giving them instructions. They are figuring it out. So if you want to know, if you think we're in a time of like tremendous tumultuous change, I think that being able to sort of solve problems like that on the fly under very difficult conditions would make you pretty qualified as someone you'd want to invest in. And we can back that up. That's not just sentiment. I think we can back that up with the data from this Reach for the Stars report that we did together with Accenture, Opportunity at Work did, and basically looked at across the entire landscape. There are already 30 million stars who have the skills in the work they're doing today that would make them qualified for jobs that pay over 50% more. So it's a talent pool that's absolutely being missed. And if businesses continue to chase degrees, that's what they'll get. If they want to go after skills, that's what they'll get. And they'll get better retention. They'll get a more qualified workforce. In fact, for the work ahead and the change ahead.
Thank you so much. I totally agree. Workday has benefited tremendously through the talent that has come in the door through our Opportunity on-ramps programs, and we are going to continue to hire in that way. I hope other companies will join us in that. And Byron, you are doing amazing work. Opportunity at Work is a great partner to Workday and other companies that are trying to advance this. So thank you very much. I appreciate it. And back to the JFF host committee. Thank you.